Let's talk about the circle of fifths progression. So the circle of fifths progression is different from the basic circle of fifths that we've been using to practice chords. And remember, so the circle of fifths is basically the circle you create by constantly moving down or up by fourth or fifth, whereby continuing to do so eventually moves you back around to where you started, creating a circle with all 12 of the notes in our chromatic scale. The circle of fifths progression is a progression that does a similar thing. We keep moving down by fifth, except that we need to alter one of those fifths rather than being perfect to become diminished so that all of the chords remain within the same key. So the key we're going to practice right now is C minor. So we're going to be using the notes of the C natural minor scale. So these are the notes that are in the key signature of C minor. So that means we have lay and te in them. All right, those are going to be the notes that all the roots of our chords are going to be derived from, as well as most of the notes above it, with the exception of the 5 chord. We're going to raise te to T to make our raised leading tone for the 5-1 at the end. So we start on Do on C. We'll go down by fifth to F. Now if we continued down by fifth, we'd get to B flat, but I'm going to move that up. This is going to keep my hand in a similar register. It's going to make it move less. It's going to be a nicer way to play it. So the pattern's going to be down by fifth, up by fourth, down by fifth, up by fourth. Now here we are on the 6th scale degree on lay, and this is where I need to alter. I can't go down by perfect fifth because then I end up on D flat. That note is not in the C minor scale. So I alter that to create the diminished fifth interval, A flat to D, which then allows me to do up by perfect fourth, down by fifth, to end on the C that I started on, an octave away from it. All right, so that's the pattern of the root in notes 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Now let's look at what the right hand does on top of it. So let's start out finding a C minor, right hand in right hand root position. Okay. Now, since I'm dealing with chord motions by fifth, there are always going to be one common tone between my chords, and that means the other 2 notes in the chord are going to move by step to their nearest neighbors in the next chord. So I start on C minor. C and F share this common tone of C, so I move the other 2 notes up by step, one by whole step, one by half step, to the notes of the F minor triad that comes next. So notice, the F chord that comes next, it's the 4 chord in a minor key, which is a minor sonority, right? Lay is in the C natural minor scale, so I use that and not anything else. So that's 1 to 4. Now, I could keep going and following the smoothest voice leading pattern here by, again, retaining the common tone, which between F and B flat that comes next is F, like that. So now I'm on the 7 chord built off of te, the lowered 7th scale degree, and that's a major chord. Then I go to the 3 chord built off of me. Again, keep the common tone. Now here's 6, keeping the common tone. Here's 2, and remember, in minor keys, the 2 chord is a diminished chord. Then here's the one moment when I changed that the natural minor scale and raised the leading tone, giving me a major 5 chord, and then bring it home to 1. Now, that's one way of doing it, where you follow the smoothest voice leading patterns through, which ends up with your hands sort of moving apart from each other as you're working your way up. Now, I don't actually want you to practice this circle of fifths progression that way, okay? The reason is, one of the interesting aspects of the circle of fifths progression is that the root motions of the chords creates what we call a sequence. So the first descending fifth, from going from 1 to 4, is then repeated now a whole step lower on B flat, descending fifth to E flat. That gets repeated again a step lower, A flat, except with the change of A flat to D, diminished fifth, and then it goes a half step lower, G to C. So there's a sequential pattern in there, a pattern of intervals within that root motion. And I want to highlight that, I want to make that clear. So I'm going to mirror it with my right hand chord. So instead of always following the smoothest progression of voices in the right hand, I'm actually going to make a shift when I get to the repeat of the sequence. So let me show you how that works. Here's our, starting on a root position, C minor in the right hand, find the smoothest way to get to F. And now, instead of going to that B flat from this F, I'm going to shift, pick up the right hand, and find the same root position B flat chord, well, the same root position that I had on C minor that I started with, but now on B flat. And then repeat the pattern of that root position to second inversion when I go from 7 to 3. Now we do the same thing on 6 to 2, 5 to 1. So let me play that whole thing again. 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So practice the circle of fifths progression in this manner.